What if I told you that the single biggest advantage you could have in life isn't about knowing more stuff? What if it's about knowing exactly what you don't know? It sounds a little strange, right? But this one powerful idea was a cornerstone for the investing legend Charlie Munger. We're going to dig into how admitting your own ignorance can actually be your greatest superpower.
You know, Munger had this brilliant, kind of backward way of looking at success. Instead of asking, how do I get what I want? He learned from the comedian Johnny Carson to flip the question on its head and ask, how could I guarantee a life of absolute misery? And this is a classic Munger move. It's a mental model he called inversion. He was a big believer that a lot of tough problems are way easier to solve if you just think about them in reverse. So, you want to figure out success? Well, first, you have to get crystal clear on what causes failure. Okay, so let's try it. Let's use inversion right now. If you had to pick the number one absolute guaranteed way to invite total disaster into your life and your career, what would it be? Munger, for one, had a very clear answer. And boom, there it is. The fastest way to crash and burn is to operate outside of what you genuinely understand. It's making huge decisions on things where, if you're being honest, you only have a surface-level knowledge. For Munger, this one mistake, this is the root of almost every major screw-up. So, all right, that's the trap. How do we avoid falling into it? Well, Munger had this simple but really profound mental model to keep us all honest. He called it the Circle of Competence.
Your circle of competence is just that. It's that specific kind of small area where you've actually put in the work, you've done the reps, and you truly know your stuff. And the key thing is, it's not about how big your circle is. It's about being brutally, unflinchingly honest about where the edge of that circle is.
Just think about how freeing that is for a second. You don't have to have an opinion on every single stock, every new piece of tech, or every political drama. Your only job, your most important job, is to be honest with yourself and just define your own boundaries.
And hey, this isn't just some Munger idea. He absolutely loved this quote from the founder of IBM, Thomas Watson Sr. The most successful people in the world. They're not geniuses at everything. They're just masters at figuring out what their spots are and then having the discipline to stay there.
So how do you actually use this idea day to day? Well, Munger didn't just talk about this stuff in the abstract. He had a really simple sorting system for pretty much every decision or investment that came across his desk.
Every single opportunity went into one of three baskets. You had the yes basket for things he understood really well and that looked like a great deal. You had the no basket for things he understood but just didn't like. And then you have the most important basket of all, the one that really protected him, the too tough basket. Anything he wasn't completely sure about, he just tossed it in there and moved on. And the critical point is this. For Munger, the vast majority of things in the world belonged in that third basket.
To really drive home the difference between real, deep knowledge and, well, fake knowledge, Munger loved to tell this one story about the Nobel Prize-winning physicist Max Planck. It's just a brilliant way to understand this whole concept. See, in Munger's world, there are basically two kinds of knowledge. First, you've got Planck knowledge. This is the real deal, the deep expertise you get from years of hard work. And then there's chauffeur knowledge. That's the person who can recite all the facts and sound super impressive, but there's no real understanding underneath. It's all performance, no substance.
So the story goes like this. After winning the Nobel Prize, Max Planck was touring all over Germany, giving the same standard lecture on quantum mechanics everywhere he went.
Well, his chauffeur drove him to all these towns. And after hearing the speech dozens of times, he finally turns to Planck and says, "You know, Professor, I've heard this lecture so many times, I have it completely memorized. How about tonight we switch places? I'll give the lecture, and you can just sit in the front row and wear my chauffeur's hat."
And Planck, being a pretty cool guy, he agreed. And you know what? The chauffeur gets up there and delivers this incredibly complex lecture on quantum mechanics word for word, absolutely flawlessly. He played the part perfectly.
But then, right at the end, a physics professor from the audience stands up and asks a really technical, detailed follow-up question. The chauffeur, he doesn't even blink. He just says, "I am surprised that in a city as advanced as this, I would be asked such an elementary question. In fact, I'm going to ask my chauffeur, who is sitting right there in the front row, to reply."
And that story just perfectly captures the whole idea, doesn't it? The chauffeur had the script down cold, but he had zero actual understanding. Knowing the difference between real Planck knowledge and superficial chauffeur knowledge, both in yourself and in other people, it's not a weakness. It's a massive strategic advantage.
So why is this such a game changer? Well, knowing your circle does two crucial things for you.
First, it protects you from making colossal mistakes. It keeps you from playing games you just don't understand. And second, it gives you the confidence to act decisively, to bet big when a true opportunity does pop up inside your area of expertise. It helps you tune out all the noise from the chauffeurs. So remember, the goal is not to have the biggest circle. The goal is just to know exactly where your boundaries are.
In the end, it all just boils down to this really simple but profound question from Munger himself. In a world that seems to reward people for acting like they're certain about everything, the real power comes from having the honesty and the discipline to admit the limits of your own understanding.
So I'll leave you with this to think about. What are the things, the topics, the investments, the decisions that you should honestly, and with no judgment at all, just place in your too tough to understand basket? Answering that question for yourself, well, it might just be the smartest thing you do all day.